Hello everyone, what's going on? This is Andrew here with Spark Finance, and I'm going to give you the business recap of the most interesting business news that recently occurred. To start off with, we have Bitcoin reaching $40,000 for one Bitcoin for the first time ever. So this was something that came off of, you had JP Morgan coming out and saying that, you know what, we're going to start putting a valuation on Bitcoin. And they compared it to gold or even a replacement for gold. And their valuation was $146,000 for one Bitcoin. So that's pretty crazy right there. The crypto market as a whole now is over $1 trillion, and it's been going pretty crazy recently. So it was up, I think Bitcoin was up 305% total in 2020, right? And if you had bought Bitcoin when it hit the previous record around 20,000, that was only like a month ago, and you would have doubled your money already. But is anybody really looking at the chart of Bitcoin now and seeing if it's gone parabolic and it's at that tipping point where it's going to flip and sell off again like it has 8 times in the past? So that's what we're really waiting for in this battle for Bitcoin, is when does it reach that tipping point once again, because it's getting pretty crazy. Next up, we have the Brexit. We have UK, the United Kingdom, leaving the European Union officially on December 31st, 2020. So they were actually in the European Union, or European Commons as it was called before this, for 47, 48 years. And now they are expecting, well, the positives of this is that they want to have a boost in trade with the rest of the world outside of Europe. And they also can kind of set their own laws and rework their economy to stop being influenced by the European Union directives, rules, and the policymakers over in Brussels, instead of focusing on the people in the United Kingdom. So the deal was actually closed on Christmas Eve, and in the end it was about 1,000 pages thick. So it's pretty crazy how they make these kind of agreements that are these huge volumes like that. Next up, we have 3 major companies in 2018 that came up with this grand idea of redoing the whole healthcare industry and cutting costs and everything. It was Berkshire Hathaway, Amazon, and JP Morgan. And the goal here was they had 1.5 million employees within all these 3 companies. Maybe they can put together all of their tools, resources, and technology and really lower healthcare costs, right? So the bad news is, after 3 years, this is going to be closed down. It was not able to be successful. So the companies had to deal with a few different issues. They had different cultures in the different organizations, different types of employees, different locations as well. And they already had healthcare systems in place in those companies. And when they tried to make changes, they were butting heads with the kind of establishment that was already in the companies. So now, like companies like Amazon, they went all in on this. Remember, they spent, I think it was $1 billion to buy a company called PillPack, and that was to basically do prescription drugs direct to consumers. Now, this was one thing that didn't work so well. They also had issues with the gathering data between the partners and the individuals and the insurance companies, right? Insurance is like the healthcare industry is crazy. It's like the one thing where you don't know the price that you're paying for something. The insurance companies wouldn't tell them why or how or what type of medical care, like everything that they needed to make decisions. The insurance companies didn't want to divulge to them either. So they ended up spending $100 million on this endeavor, and now they're closing it down officially. Then we have Jack Ma, who was the richest entrepreneur in China, has suddenly gone missing. Everybody's saying, where did he go? What's going on, right? He was being investigated by the Chinese Communist government there. And it was getting kind of interesting where it looks like the Chinese regulators were actually looking for Ant Group and Alibaba's information that they were gathering on individuals. They have a lot of personal data, a lot of financial information that these companies are doing. They held up the Ant IPO, and they are investigating Alibaba for antitrust, right? So Jack Ma, kind of his disappearance right around this time is very interesting. There's new rumors now that he's just kind of laying low for a while until the heat calms down. That's if he's not in a gulag or a re-education camp in one of those crazy places. But Alibaba sold off 30% on this news. So if you really think that they're not going to do an antitrust case against them, it might be a buying opportunity for those people that still think that that company is really strong. That's one that's traded in the United States. Next up, we have cotton, which recently hit 79 cents a pound, which is up 55% since April 2020. So this is another commodity just skyrocketing here, hitting these highs. We had aluminum, we had platinum. I mean, there's tons of these. Soybeans is near the highs. So this is crazy. The US dollar has actually declined 5% in 2020. So that was the worst performance since 2017. So we're seeing these commodities increase in price as the US dollar goes down in price. So it's pretty interesting to see there. Then we have Elon Musk, the man, the myth, the legend, now worth $195 billion. So he just topped Jeff Bezos as the world's richest man. Jeff Bezos has about $10 billion less than Elon right now. And the thing is that, well, Jeff Bezos, he would have been still in that spot if he didn't get the divorce, which is another interesting thing. But Elon Musk made this money because Tesla stock's at $880 a share. It's hitting all-time highs, and his net worth went up $150 billion in like the past year. Then you have Congress now with the new government in the United States. They might be going more into electronic vehicles and trying to support kind of green technology companies. So you've seen all of that kind of increase Elon Musk's net worth there, right? You had S&P 500 add Tesla to their index. Now just wait until, this is before SpaceX even has their IPO. That's another company that he's involved in. So it's kind of thinking here, like, who else would potentially be the world's richest man in the future? Maybe Satoshi Nakamoto, the one that owns like 1 million Bitcoins and never buys or sells any. I mean, if Bitcoin keeps going up, who knows, right? But looking at this a little closely at the company of Tesla, it's a bit frothy right now, right? They just surpassed Facebook in terms of market cap. So that's pretty crazy. They're almost at $1 trillion market cap right now. It's like $50 billion away from that. So as they went into the S&P 500 and their price keeps going up, these companies are scrambling to get it because it's a share of the S&P 500 index and they have to own that same percentage. So a lot of companies are scrambling to try and buy that. But looking at the valuation now, it is now 25 times larger than another automotive company, Ford, right? It's 2.5 times as large as Walmart. This is the 5th largest company in the United States right now, the 5th largest. And they're almost trading at 30 times sales, not 30 times earnings, 30 times sales. If the S&P 500 traded at 30 times sales, it would be at 37,000 instead of what it is right now, around 3,800. Think of the gap there on how much it is. And think of all the different things that Tesla did. They promised robo-taxis by the end of 2020, fully autonomous driving by the end of 2020. Even they said they were going to do 500,000 vehicles, which they came in just under. So like stuff like that, autonomous driving is going to take a lot of time. They're missing a lot of milestones here. The total deliveries were 499,550. So they were just under that 500,000 number. But if you look at it, they're selling a lot of the Model 3 and Model Y. There's 161,000 out of like 187,000 total, where the newer end vehicles there and not their older ones, which have a potentially higher price or higher margin. So I hope people that are kind of in this stock, you can see how crazy the valuation gets. It's trading on a PE value of over like 1,200 right now. I hope some of those people ended up taking some profits off the table with this nice run up in the stock. Next up, we have Roblox, which we talked about before. This is a kids online gaming company. And they said that they just raised $520 million in a private financing round. And this is separate from the direct listing that they were doing. So remember, they were trying to do a IPO and things got a little crazy. You had DoorDash and Airbnb come out and the valuations on those soared as well. Like they came out and the stocks doubled right off the bat. So now this company is going to be following other companies like Spotify and Slack and Palantir and do a direct listing in its IPO. But it's interesting that it just raised this money just recently from, I think it was Altimeter Capital was the company that went, and Dragoneer Investment Group. They went and invested in Roblox at a valuation at $29.5 billion. So if you look at that, that's an increase of more than 7-fold from its last funding in February of 2020. So they're still trying to raise another $30 million in capital in the IPO. So this company is ready to make a lot of money in this capital raise. Next up, we have QuantumScape. So they're one of those companies that are in this kind of electronic vehicle space, making new types of batteries. And they had a nice run up to about $130 a share. And then you know what? It sold off to $63 a share. And they announced that they were doing this kind of issuance of new shares. And it sold off $39, $40 on this announcement. Tesla announces they're issuing new shares. Nobody cares. It still goes up. But this one sold off like crazy. They don't actually have a product on the market yet. It's just a lot of big dreams here, but it's just crazy seeing the volatility in companies like this. Next up, we have Pfizer and Biontech. So they actually came out and said that their vaccine is working against the new strains of the virus. We had the UK, the South African, and there was one other one that I can't remember now, different strains of the virus, but their vaccine seems to be working against those as well, which are now in Colorado, New York, and California, 3 states in the United States. Going into like the vaccine kind of vibe here, we have CRISPR Technologies hitting a new high around $198 a share. So keep in mind, these new vaccines are using the mRNA, messenger RNA. It's a new system. And CRISPR is gene editing, where they can edit out bad genes and potentially save people from very debilitating viruses and genetic defects. Next up, we have Boeing, which admitted fault in their 737 MAX jet that whole debacle that they had. The settlement will cost Boeing $2.5 billion. But the good news here, or some good news at least, will be $243 million is for the fine, but $2.2 billion is going for compensation for airline customers and families of the 346 people who died from the 2 plane crashes. Then we have next up the unemployment numbers came in at 140,000 jobs lost in December. The unemployment rate actually ticked down to 6.7%. Actually, it was at 6.7%. It remained unchanged, but analysts were expecting it to be 6.8%. So it actually came in better than the expectations. Then if you look at some deeper dive onto those numbers, the hospitality industry with hotels and restaurants, which are getting obliterated by this pandemic, had a 23.2% drop, losing 3.9 million jobs since January 22. So you can see all of that kind of job losses in that industry. It's just getting hit really hard. Then something here interesting with the virus in China. The CDC indicated there was a 4.43% antibody rate in people in Wuhan province for this virus, right? So this would actually indicate that the amount of people that caught the virus is actually 10 times higher than the official figure. That means 500,000 people were infected or exposed to the virus in that area. So also the vaccine that China has, which is from Sinopharm, they said it's 79% effective. But it's kind of crazy now because you're just looking at the China coming out with these numbers that are not accurate. I mean, can we really believe who survived and died from this and the amount of infections when we can see that there's false data coming out here now? Another thing with the vaccines, Novavax has begun a phase 3 clinical trial of its experimental COVID-19 vaccine. So this one has 30,000 people at 115 sites in the US and Mexico. And the shot from Novavax will be the 5th vaccine now to enter final stage testing, right? We have Moderna, Pfizer and Biontech, and now this is, I think those were approved in December by the FDA. So it's pretty crazy now. There's potentially 5 vaccines on the way. Choose your pick of which one you want to try if you want to choose any. And there's other companies, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, they're also trying to go into this kind of vaccine business here and really get as many vaccines out to people before the virus mutates and we can't deal with the new strains. So that's some good news here, is that there are a lot of these vaccines. Usually it takes 4 years to create a vaccine, guys. And these vaccines have been created in, I think it was less than a year. It was like 9 months when the first vaccine started coming out. So that's pretty incredible right there. We love innovation on this channel. So looking into all of the business news, if you want to hear more information next week, tune in and I'll give you the business recap of the week. Thanks for watching.